we're going to be entering a very important topic of discussion in today's video, one that has to do with personal savings, people's investing habits, and the general financial outlook of the majority of Americans. We're going to be looking at an article from Bankrate called Bankrate's 2023 Annual Emergency Savings Report, and I just want to read you a few key stats before we break off into this video. Only 48% of US adults say they have enough emergency savings to cover at least 3 months worth of expenses. Think that's bad? Hear this one. 36% have more credit card debt than emergency savings. 36%. Okay, here's one more. 61% of US adults say they have money in the stock market. Only 61%. So we're gonna launch into all of that in today's video. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell if you like the content. Hello everyone, my name is Bruce Bradbury and I'm a bit of a financial, up-and-comer. We do a lot of day trading, stock trading on this channel, but today I wanted to talk about a very important topic. In my opinion, not many people are actually investing in the stock market. You just heard only 61% of Americans even invest at all. And the fact that Bankrate says that 48% of Americans don't have 3 months worth of emergency expenses, well, that's pretty startling. First things first, I want to bring it back to a historical perspective. We're going to look at the St. Louis Fed economic data and take it back. We're seeing right now, currently, the personal savings rate as of June 23 was 4.3%. That seems pretty low in my opinion. I want us to take a historical look though and see, well, is that actually high? Is it low? Is that right where savings has usually been? This spike due to COVID is really crazy. Savings was up at 30% at one point, so we'll kind of ignore that because that was an anomaly. However, before, in the mid-2010s, the savings rate was hovering around 5 to 7%. We see in the 2000s, saving rate was a bit lower. In the 90s, right, 5 to 7. In the 80s, 8 to 11. And then in the 70s, 60s, savings rate was closer to 10%. So we see this general drawdown. I think a lot of people think about when I open Facebook, I see a lot of my friends always talking about how, compared to the 1960s, everyone in America had it pretty good. Any person, no matter what job you had, if you were a blue collar worker, if you were, say a janitor or you worked at a Starbucks or a coffee shop, you could still afford basically everything in life. Now, in my opinion, it seems if you're not like a super high earner, then you're pretty much left out. You're riddled with debt, you don't have enough personal savings, and you don't have any prospects to buy a home. I don't think that's right. I live in Seattle, housing prices are really high. The median home price is about $850,000 in the Seattle area. Now, if you are the average income earner in America, makes about $60,000 a year, you just can't afford a house. That's just not a feasible option for you. So I wanted to explore in the video, is it the reason that many Americans' financial outlooks look so terrible because of the economic system that has evolved? So is it an outward effect? Or is it because people aren't saving enough money, people aren't investing enough, and the personal accountability aspect? Is it some outward effect of inflation or wages? Or is it a personal accountability measure, such as investing in personal savings rate? Well, to help us answer that question, I wanted us to take a look at Bankrate, their 2023 Annual Emergency Savings Report. As inflation and economic uncertainty continue to affect Americans, only 48% of US adults say they have enough emergency savings to cover at least 3 months worth of expenses, according to a new Bankrate survey. Common personal financial advice recommends having at least 3 months saved up for emergencies like a job loss or an unexpected medical bill. As a significant portion of Americans don't have an emergency fund for 3 months, 57% of US adults have said that they feel uncomfortable with the emergency savings that they currently have. 1/3 have said very uncomfortable, and 24% have said somewhat uncomfortable. So the outlook doesn't look too good here. Key statistics on emergency funds and personal savings. Fewer have no emergency savings at all. Actually, 22% of US adults have no emergency savings at all, the lowest percentage in 13 years of polling. Growing debt, which is hurting savings. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, 36% have more credit card debt than they do emergency savings. emergency savings needs a boost. As of December polling, only 43% of US adults would pay for an unexpected emergency expense from their savings. And inflation, the nasty, nasty word inflation. Inflation and unemployment are to blame. As of December, 74% say economic factors are causing them to save less right now, including 68% who say inflation is to blame, and that's up from 49% last year. Bankrate asked, how much do you have in emergency savings? That is, money that's readily available in either a checking, savings account, or a money market fund. We'll take a look at Gen Z. Only 13% say they have enough to cover 6 months worth of expenses. 3 to 5 months, we've got over 3 months, and then we have actually 31% of Gen Z not having any emergency savings at all. That's truly living paycheck to paycheck. Now, millennials grows 20%. Gen X savings grows to 26%. Baby boomers, 47% have enough to cover. Now, that's just, the general rule of life. As you're aging, you're accumulating more savings. However, it still is important to consider that the average rate of savings for Americans is 4%. Now, I'm assuming here by looking at these numbers that many people in the Gen Z category maybe aren't even saving at all, right? They're living totally paycheck to paycheck. How much emergency savings someone has rises as they grow older and wealthier. The difference in emergency savings levels is particularly stark between different income brackets. We're actually going to be looking at that. Households with yearly income under $50,000 a year are more than 7 times more likely to have no emergency savings than households who make $100,000 a year or more. Wow, that's insane. So income brackets under $50,000 a year, 37% of them do not have any emergency savings at all. Now that number decreases sharply when you go to 50 to 75 at 18%, 75 to 100,000, 10%, and 100,000 or more is 5%. So it is really showing me that there is an income divide here. I want us to take a look at one more thing. A lot of people don't really think of this, but the normal inflation rate is about 2%. Now, throughout the past few years, and last June actually, inflation hit 9%, which is pretty insane. Now, the common person that I talk to on the street, they don't really pay any attention to inflation. It's kind of this silent killer of value and money. Really, it's way bigger of a deal than most people make it out to be. Now, if you consider an inflation rate historically of 2% per year, remember, 2%, that compounds quickly. So I want us to take a look at actually, the difference, because you might be seeing this and say, okay, under 50,000 a year. Now, for a few years, we've been hearing the same story. Okay, median income for someone in America is around 50,000 a year. And the federal minimum wage has been $7.25 for literally ever. So I wanted us to just take a gander at, okay, let's look at from year 2000 to 2023, what actually is 50,000 in 2000 worth today in 2023, just 23 years, but we get a picture of what inflation actually does to your money. So we'll calculate that. From 2000 to 2023, 50,000 becomes nearly $88,000. Now that's the silent killer. That's the thing you want to think about if you're a regular wage earner, right? You want to make sure that your wages are increasing every year. Most people, maybe they get a 3% raise every year. That covers inflation. However, for the normal person who's thinking back, my first job, I was a dishwasher at a restaurant. I made, $9.75 an hour, I believe. Now, that was probably 6 or 7 years ago. So, just considering probably, someone working as a dishwasher now is probably making $13, $14, even $15 an hour. Now, this is the craziest thing to me, that 36% of people said that they have more credit card debt than they have money in their emergency fund or savings account. I totally get it. I understand that a lot of people are living with a super stretched budget. I've even talked to quite a few friends actually that say they don't have an emergency fund, and if an emergency expense the car gets broken into and they have to repair a window, for instance, that comes from the credit card. And at that point, it adds on to the credit card debt. This is a foundation of finances where you're kind of thinking of credit card. You should really be thinking of credit cards as, a free loan on money for less than a month, right? Think about it. Like if you use a credit card, swipe the card, okay, so you have about a month to a month and a half before that bill comes due, right? Now, credit card interest rates are absolutely insane. They could be up in the direction of 25% interest, which is literally so insane. I mean, you just have to pay off the credit card every single month. That is destructive to people's wealth building, being charged 25% interest on maybe their groceries or whatever, their emergency expenses. Just having a personal savings to begin with and not holding a balance on that credit card is huge. Now, I wanted to bring you my favorite book. I found this book when I was 14 years old, and it literally changed my life and my perspective about money. I'll read you just the intro foreword. Our prosperity as a nation depends upon the personal financial prosperity of each of us as individuals. This book deals with the personal successes of each of us. Success means accomplishments as the result of our own efforts and abilities. Now, this book, The Richest Man in Babylon, it's kind of told in parable form or story format. There's kind of this known understanding that Babylon in its prime was very well off. Not just the wealth of the government or the state, but wealth of people on an individual level. A lot of people had understanding that to be financially successful as a nation, each one of us has to be financially successful. One of my favorite, most powerful stories about the concept of savings is there's one character in here who is in construction. He's a builder. He's 50 years old. He's been working all his life as a builder. He actually has a very good reputation in the town. Everyone knows him. He makes really quality products. He works hard. He does everything right. He looks at his savings and he says, wow, I literally don't have anything. I don't have a penny to my name. How have I been working all my life and I'm an esteemed member of my community and I don't have a penny of savings? Well, he looks to his neighbor, and his neighbor, who's doing equally as successful as him in his trade, he has a nice luxurious house. He supports his family. He, has the leisure time in his older years to just, not have to work as hard. And the message is, the builder, he didn't know the concepts of personal finance and how important savings was. Every time he got paid, he would go and, buy food or buy shoes or, pay his debtors off. So actually none of the money that he made was his, because as soon as he made his money, he went and gave it to someone else. Now the neighbor took a percentage of every dollar that he owned and said, hey, this is my money to keep. This doesn't belong to anyone else but myself. And that's actually one of the tenets of this book, is pay yourself first, right? Why are you working? Are you working just so that you can pay that credit card bill? Think about it. If you're working hard all day at work and you pay the credit card bill, who's receiving the benefit? Just, the bank or the person at the credit card office? The Richest Man in Babylon works upon these 7 tenets. Start thy purse to fattening, control thy expenditures, make thy gold multiply, guard thy treasures from loss, make of thy dwelling a profitable investment, ensure a future income, and increase thy ability to earn. So these are the 7 tenets and principles of the book. Really great idea for anyone out there to read it. It was really a foundational piece of financial advice for me. Okay, last final note. I want to talk about why investing is so important. The common person doesn't invest. Only 61% of Americans invest. And I bet you that a percentage of that is people that just have a 401k through their work and they don't even look at their money. As a side note, I had a professor in college who ran a mutual fund in Portland before he was a professor, and he was doing a financial audit of everyone's 401k accounts with the mutual fund. And it turned out that a lot of people had put money into their 401k, but they hadn't even allotted it. And it turns out, he did the audit, that about 70% of the people that put money into their 401ks then didn't do the second step of allotting that money to investments. That's just a basic concept, right? When you're investing, you put money in the investing account, and then you have to go buy the assets. And let me tell you why investing is so very important. We talked about inflation. We looked at the inflation rate. Now, historical inflation is 2% per year, and we're going to look at that and break in the numbers. But there are different types of inflation, right? Inflation on consumer goods, inflation on food. the largest one, inflation of college in the US. It's been astronomically higher than the regular inflation rate in the US. So this is the reason, instead of saving your money, you should invest your money. Have a savings fund, have a savings account of maybe a few months of expenses. But other than that, my principle is invest the rest, because money only depreciates. Money goes down in value. Everything else, like foods, goods, cars, houses, schooling, college, anything I want to buy, that goes up in price every single year, while my cash only goes down in price. So this is why it's very important to invest. We're going to look at different inflation rates. Inflation rate for consumer goods in the US from 1983 all the way to 2023. Inflation rate for these goods was as high as, 9% last year, but even looking at the average, it kind of seems like we're hovering around, 3 or 4%. We have energy and food. Energy is consistently getting more expensive. Okay, so and now I want us to look at VTI, which is Vanguard's Total Stock Market Index Fund ETF. You just type in the letters VTI in your brokerage, and you can buy this fund, right? And this fund actually has nearly 4,000 stocks. So every $227, which is, one share of the ETF, gets dispersed into about 3,800 companies. So it's very diversified, and you're not investing in one company, you're investing in America at this point, right? And the reason that you're investing is because equities go up over time. I want us to look at the max. Look at this. From 2001 at $57 to 2023, where we are now, to $227, we've got an increase of nearly 300%. So this is why you should invest. Instead of putting your money away in savings, of course, have a little bit of an emergency fund. But, in my personal opinion and what I'm doing in my own life, anything extra money that I have, I'm investing. Once I've got the emergency fund, okay, the other money that I put away every month just goes into VTI, because investments and companies and market share only grows as time goes on. So if you're investing, you're participating in the economic growth, and you're actually deflecting that. So you're not taking on the depreciation of your money, you're actually involving yourself in the inflationary price rise of, equities, which is a very important thing that everyone should be doing. So hope this video was helpful and provided a little clarity around why investing is just so important. Well, first things first, savings is so important. And then once you've got an emergency fund, you're moving on to investing and creating and building wealth for yourself. Now, I know it can be hard. I know firsthand that it can be hard. Building the savings fund, especially if you're a low-income earner, especially if you're making $50,000 or even less than that per year, it's really hard to save money. Now, for me personally, I'm saving, and it's my goal, it gets hard some months, but I try to save 50% of all of my money that I make. So you can imagine if you're making $40,000 a year, okay, well, that sounds nice and dandy, but how am I supposed to live on $20,000 a year? Well, that's really hard. You really can't, especially like if you're living in a big city, maybe not. So as your income grows, you're able to save more and more percentage of your income. But I think if you're starting on that wealth building journey, it really is important to, live below your means, save your money, try and scrimp and save where you can. There's a balance between trying to save more and trying to make more. In my opinion, I think you should focus on both activities, right? Making more money and saving more money. At the end of the day, if you're making, $30,000 a year, $40,000 a year, well, you can't really save much, right? Even if you were somehow to save 50% of $30,000 a year, that's only $15,000 a year compared to 50% of $100,000 a year, which is $50,000, right? So make more and save more. That's the advice I got in this video. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you like and subscribe the video if you enjoyed the content. I'll see you in the next one. Take care, have a lovely day, and peace out.